Tonight, an MP's warning that overcrowding at London Bridge Station could be fatal.
It's not safe, Minister. At some point, somebody will get injured or killed as a result of this.
Sir Bob Neill speaking 48 hours after chaotic scenes at the station, dangerously packed with commuters during rush hour.
It was crazy. I hadn't seen anything like that in my 3 years living in London.
Well, the Minister has promised to resolve the problems, also on the programme. Carrie Johnson recalls her own experience with black cab rapist John Warboys as she joins the campaign to keep killer Robert Brown behind bars.
Look at this. I'm outside my house. Look at this.
Remember this stop and search? Sprinter Ricardo dos Santos joins us to tell us about the charity he's founded after he and his partner were pulled over by Met police officers who could lose their jobs. And
Shakespeare comes to Watford. I'll be joined by Tracy Ann Oberman before she takes the stage in The Merchant of Venice.
good evening. Someone is at risk of being killed because of overcrowding at London Bridge Station. That was a warning from Sir Bob Neill in the Commons today. The Tory MP for Bromley and Chislehurst said delays on South Eastern services and infrastructure failures by Network Rail were causing chaos. And there was agreement from across the benches too when Labour MP Clive Efford said his train was so overcrowded it caused someone in his carriage to faint. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
At some point, somebody will get injured or killed as a result of this. Injured or killed as a result of this. Injured or killed as a result of this.
It was a stark warning from an MP who has seen for himself what happens when London Bridge Station struggles to cope with crowds. It happened again on Tuesday when a signal failure caused cancellations and delays.
It was crazy. I hadn't seen anything like that in my 3 years living in London. And I was I appreciate England being reliable on trains, even though they're expensive. But just seeing that, I was like, I'm avoiding this station for the foreseeable future.
Many commuters and their MPs claim timetable changes introduced by South Eastern in December are partly to blame.
Commuters at some suburban stations discovered they could no longer get a through train to Charing Cross. Others found their train to Cannon Street no longer existed. For all of them, it meant changing trains at London Bridge.
And that, according to MPs, is the problem.
Unsustainable numbers of people are having to change trains at London Bridge. I've seen the chaos there. I've actually stood outside the station because it had to be closed on occasions. It's not safe, Minister. At some point, somebody will get injured or killed as a result of this.
What we've got here is that the system has been cut back to the point where there is no slack in it. Whenever there's a delay, there is dangerous overcrowding. And the Minister has got to address that before something serious happens to an individual.
Tuesday night's scenes at London Bridge were a mirror of what happened a month earlier. Again, there was disruption to the evening rush hour. Crowds built up, forcing Network Rail to limit numbers on the platforms. Some commuters said they were frightened of being crushed. The Rail Minister told MPs some trains axed in December would now be reinstated.
The timetable change was brought in to try and add more resilience, to reduce cancellations, but we have got issues with regard to Network Rail, infrastructure, and of course we have industrial action. All of those matters I seek to resolve.
Network Rail defended its crowd management at London Bridge. A spokesperson said it's far safer to keep people on the concourse than on platforms. South Eastern said the new timetable reflected post-COVID travel patterns, but it's left many commuters unhappy and at times frightened for their safety.
Well, Simon, the Minister has promised to resolve this. What's going to happen?
Well, the government's already set up a joint task force involving Network Rail and South Eastern, which has recommended some extra trains and some longer trains. But the Minister also said TfL would be consulted for advice on how it deals with overcrowding on the tube. Those MPs with constituencies served by South Eastern are almost certainly going to keep up the pressure on the government to reinstate the old timetable. And this issue at London Bridge and South Eastern has brought fresh calls from some quarters for the whole of the capital's commuter rail network to be taken off the government and given to the Mayor.
All right, Simon, thank you. The head teacher of Epsom College died of shotgun wounds to the chest and abdomen while her 7-year-old daughter was shot in the head. An inquest into Emma and Letty Patterson's deaths heard the evidence from the post-mortems today. Both are believed to have been murdered by Emma's husband, Letty's father, George Patterson, before he turned the gun on himself. And councillors in Croydon have voted against a 15% council tax hike. The struggling authority was given special permission by the government to make the increase without holding a referendum. But 37 councillors voted down the plan and called for the Conservative mayor to come back with new proposals. This afternoon, police have given an update about the body of a baby found in Brighton yesterday. The baby had been missing with its parents, Constance Martin and Mark Gordon, for 8 weeks. Ellie Pitt is in Brighton for us this evening. Ellie, what did the police have to say today?
Well, earlier today at a press conference, they called detectives said they were truly devastated by the discovery of the baby, who they believe had been dead for several weeks before the infant's remains were found by officers yesterday afternoon. The police had been following the couple's movements down the country after their burnt-out car was found on the 5th of January near Bolton. Constance Martin and Mark Gordon made their way, police believe, just days after Miss Martin gave birth, from Liverpool to London before ending up here on the outskirts of Brighton, where officers understand they've been sleeping rough before their arrest on Monday on suspicion of child neglect and gross negligence manslaughter. This is what the detective in charge of the investigation had to say earlier.
At this stage, we have not yet been able to confirm the baby's gender, and a post-mortem examination has not yet taken place. Despite this, based on our inquiries we've carried out so far, we believe, sadly, the baby may have been dead for some time before they were found. It's too early for us to provide a more specific date.
Well, police have been granted extra time to question the pair, which will end later tonight.
All right, Ellie in Brighton, thank you. Watford General Hospital has apologised to the family of a woman who died after a doctor inserted a breathing tube into her food pipe by mistake. Emma Currell was 32 when she was starved of oxygen and died in 2020. Today, her sister said finding out that her death was preventable was like hearing that she died all over again. She's been speaking to Helen Keenan.
My favourite memories with Emma was when we went to see Craig David together. My mum had got us concert tickets together.
Are they the things that you look back on that help you cope now?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Even things like with certain songs and stuff, like even Craig David ones, at first I couldn't listen to them. It would make me too upset, but now I listen to them and I smile because I think of her and, you know, the good times that we had.
Emma Currell died after a doctor wrongly inserted a breathing tube into her food pipe. Rushed to Watford General Hospital when she suffered a seizure, an anaesthetic team was called to sedate her.
It meant that obviously her body was starved of oxygen, essentially, which caused a cardiac arrest.
So if they'd got it in the right pipe,
yeah,
Emma would still be here?
Yeah. She would have survived if it had gone into the right airway. How
did you feel then when you found out that had happened?
Like I'd lost her again. When I realised that she could have come home, but she didn't. The worst was breaking the news to my mum, and it was like the first time that she got told that her firstborn daughter had died.
A mother herself, Emma lived with nephrotic syndrome, which affects the kidneys. Her mother had donated her 1 year before. Her sister was due to do the same. In the meantime, she was being treated on dialysis. The inquest into Emma's death heard doctors at Watford General Hospital had assumed there was a problem with the monitor and machine readings.
In 2019, the Royal College of Anaesthetists rolled out their No Trace, Wrong Place campaign, which was a short training video to alert doctors as to when a breathing tube was probably in the wrong place. Just a year later, in 2020, Emma sadly died.
So you want all doctors to watch this training video?
Absolutely, and the evidence that we heard at the inquest, it wasn't clear whether the doctors involved were aware of this video.
In a statement, the Trust said they have since changed their processes to improve safety. We have introduced resuscitation training that brings our emergency department, critical care and anaesthesia teams together. Emma's sister doesn't want other families to go through the grief they have over something they say was so avoidable. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
Next tonight, Carrie Johnson, the wife of former PM Boris Johnson, has asked the Justice Secretary not to allow the early release of a man who killed his wife. Robert Brown was jailed for the manslaughter of Joanna Simpson at their home in Ascot in 2010, but could be freed later this year, halfway through his sentence. Well, last night, Mrs Johnson joined Joanna's family to launch an appeal to keep her killer behind bars, as Faye Barker reports.
Yellow roses in Westminster Chapel representing 123 women, all believed to have been killed by men over a year. They were laid out as a campaign was launched to stop the killer of Joanna Simpson being released from jail. Her estranged husband, Robert Brown, is almost halfway through a 26-year sentence after killing Joanna with a hammer at her Berkshire home in 2010. Their 2 young children nearby. He then buried her body on the Windsor Crown estate. The former British Airways pilot was acquitted of murder but admitted manslaughter and is due for automatic release later this year.
We're very stressed about his release. We're anxious, very anxious, because we know what he's capable of.
Supported by politicians, lawyers and campaigners, those who loved Joanna spoke of the impact his release may have and the injustice they feel.
This man will be looking for revenge, and he has already shown the lengths that he will go to exact his revenge. We're terrified.
Among the supporters was Carrie Johnson, the former Prime Minister's wife, part of a successful judicial review to keep black cab rapist John Warboys behind bars. She'd been targeted by him when she was 19.
It's a similar injustice, another circumstance where the law was badly letting victims down and failing to do its job to protect women.
The cause has united politicians from across the board with hope the campaign will bring change.
I don't want to be here in 10 years with another avoidable murder of a woman at the hands of her partner that then receives a sentence that just isn't right or just, and certainly not what the British public would expect.
The Justice Secretary, Dominic Raab, is due to meet Joanna's mother next week, and he says he'll review the case carefully. Campaigners hoping he'll ensure her killer remains behind bars. Faye Barker, ITV News.
Still to come, from Walford to Watford. Former EastEnders star Tracy Ann Oberman talks Shakespeare as she takes on her latest role on the stage. And is it cream first or jam? And is it scone or scone? Find out why this woman from Isleworth is the expert. But first, it's a chance to dress up as their favourite character that thousands of children in London have missed out on World Book Day today as teachers walked out in the ongoing row over pay. It's the 3rd consecutive day of strikes by National Education Union members, shutting schools across the capital. Sam Holder reports.
World Book Day is normally a highlight of the school calendar. Around the UK, children getting the chance to dress up, dive into a book, even get a special guest appearance from Mary Poppins. But in London, it was less fiction, more a lesson in economics and politics.
No ifs, no buts, no education.
Teachers from the National Education Union out on strike over pay. The majority of schools in the capital either fully or partially closed.
Schools are underfunded, and at the moment I don't feel like there's enough staff and the teacher retention isn't high enough.
There will be parents who have either had to take the day off work or pay for childcare at a time when they can't afford it. Do you worry about that?
Yeah, I worry about that, and I also think that's wrong. But as a teacher and as a supporter of education, we see this as something that we have to do.
At this picket line in Hackney, parents joined their children's teachers.
If they want to get their message out, I think, sadly, it's the only way. So, yeah, we support it and we hope that they pay up. because we want our teachers back. Woo!
The union says it wants an above-inflation pay rise for teachers and doesn't want it taken from existing school budgets. The government say they're willing to talk.
What I want to see happening, as does the Secretary of State, are negotiations about pay and about all the issues that are of concern to teachers. We wrote to the NEU last week offering them serious discussions on condition they pause the strikes. I wish they had paused these strikes.
The industrial action meant parents across the capital scrambling to find childcare or having to take leave. In a cost of living crisis, an extra financial burden. Play centres like Discovery in Newham having far more children turn up than usual.
I have to take time off from work and I have to look for something else for him to do. And I Google it and I found this place and I bring him here. I come all the way from Wimbledon today.
And we're in Stratford, that's a long way.
I know, yeah, it's about an hour journey.
One summer's day. On World Book Day, a chance still for story time. But with more strikes planned on the 15th and 16th, for parents, there's no happy ending in sight. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Now, my guest should be most well known for his talent on the track as a sprinter. Ricardo dos Santos set a Portuguese national record in the 400-metre semi-finals of the European Championships and won bronze at the Ibero-American Championships. But unfortunately, it is his experiences with the Metropolitan Police that have made the headlines. In 2020, he and his partner, fellow sprinter Bianca Williams, were stopped and handcuffed after being followed by Met Police officers while driving to their home in West London. Their 3-month-old baby was in the car. They were told they'd been stopped on suspicion that they were connected with violent crime and maybe in possession of weapons or drugs. So after an investigation by the police watchdog, the Met apologised and 5 officers face misconduct hearings. And then again last year, Ricardo was pulled over and questioned by armed officers who say they thought he was using his phone. That incident is still being reviewed by the IOPC. Ricardo dos Santos has now started a charity called For the Voiceless. It's aimed to address existing disproportionate rates at which black people are targeted by the police and to provide funding to those who have fallen victim to alleged discriminatory police treatment. And I'm pleased to say that Ricardo joins me now. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us. Listen, we had a reminder there of what happened back in 2020, and we're going to get to talking about the charity. But let's just stay with 2020 for the moment, and bearing in mind that officers are facing a hearing that's coming up later this year. But just remind us about the impact that had on you and Bianca when that happened the first time.
For us, it was like a very surreal experience. We've never experienced something on that scale. And it's taken so much that Bianca has now pulled herself out of the media work because she can't deal with things mentally. And yeah, so it's impacted us quite a bit.
That's a huge impact that has affected Bianca to that extent. Because presumably she would have been here, sat here with you.
But now she decided for her mental well-being, it's best to stay at home and let me do everything.
Yeah, and and the little baby was in the car, 3 months old now.
He's
nearly 3 now.
He's 3 this month.
Yeah.
Very lucky that he has no recognition of what happened. Yeah. And we just now move forward.
Moving forward then, let's talk about the charity. It was your experiences, 2020, that experience 2022 as well, which was a catalyst, I suppose, for the charity, which is For the Voiceless. Now, just tell us exactly how it will work.
Well, what we're doing is, first and foremost, I'm donating my winnings and earnings from my police cases, and I'm going to donate it to my charity. And then it'll be something where I just thought that if I just take the money and then go away, this problem will still be around. So I thought it's best to help, and still somebody somewhere will need my help and the help of others to push forward. So
you're putting your own cash forward to help others who might find themselves in similar situations and positions to you. Have you reached out to the Met? Have you told them about this charity and what you're doing? Have you had any response from them?
We haven't yet, but it's something that we're planning on doing. Obviously, we would want them involved, because it's as doing focus groups, let them actually come and see the impact that they're causing on young individuals.
Yeah, and you know, when the first incident happened back in 2020, it was under the watch of former boss Dame Cressida Dick. She's now resigned. She resigned after a series of scandals really dogging the Met. You've got a new boss in charge. You've got Sir Mark Rowley. Are you confident that he can turn things around when it comes to restoring trust with Londoners?
I do believe everyone is entitled to actually trying something, and I do think that he can try. And the confidence that I would have, I don't think I have at the moment, because I've not yet to see anything, especially because of what happened previously, and they keep saying the same thing, that there's nothing to it. So until they actually take accountability of what has happened and is happening, then it'll take a while for me to actually form some form of trust.
All right, well, listen, Ricardo, thank you so much for coming to talk to us, and wish you all the best with you. I know you are still training, you've got events coming up in the summer, and send our best to Bianca as well.
I will do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The ITV News continues at 6:30. Here's a look ahead with Charlene.
Coming up, the third and final report into the 2017 Manchester Arena bombing has been released. A damning assessment of MI5 as the inquiry finds there were significant missed opportunities which might have prevented the blast, which killed 22 people. A story of betrayal. Matt Hancock accuses the journalist who leaked thousands of his WhatsApp messages of treachery. And the magic of the Cup. Grimsby Town celebrates a giant killing for the ages on the south coast. Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Well, next from us, at Watford Palace Theatre tonight, Shakespeare's classic The Merchant of Venice will be reimagined, now set in 1930s London. Antoine Allen is there for us this evening. And Antoine, there's a proper Londoner taking on the lead too, isn't there?
Yes, indeed. I've been joined here by Tracy Ann Oberman. Tracy, your reimagining of The Merchant of Venice is different. Why is that?
Well, it's called The Merchant of Venice 1936. The main difference is the play normally runs at 3 3/4 hours. This one runs under 2 hours with an interval. It's a play that Shylock is the kind of main protagonist, and it's always played by a man. So I've reinvented it to turn it into a female Shylock based on my great-grandmother who grew up in the East End. It's also set with the Venetian aristocracy. We've set it in London 1936 against the background of the Battle of Cable Street, where Oswald Mosley, the leader of the British Union of Fascists, marched onto Cable Street to attack the Jewish population that lived there, expecting all the other working-class communities to join him. And he was very shocked to discover that him and his army, his private army, was seen off by not only the Jewish community, but the Unionists, the Irish working class community, the Afro-Caribbean community, the English working classes, and the dockers all stood together and said, if you come for one, you come for all. And they got rid of him. And after that, the law changed in this country where you couldn't have a private militia. I wanted to reclaim the play because I think it's a deeply anti-Semitic play. We're living at a time of heightened racism across the board, I think. And I think this is a salutary lesson to say that when minorities stand together, like they did at the Battle of Cable Street, we're stronger together, braver together, and prouder together.
And this play itself was supposed to come to the stage in 2020, but of course the lockdown happened. So has it been worth the wait for you?
Oh my gosh, it's been a long time coming. It's been a real passion project for myself and the director, Bridget Larmore. And we lockdown, killed it. And also a few of the theatres that we were doing it with also went into liquidation. But we've come back better and stronger. The Royal Shakespeare Company have picked us up. We're going down to the Swan later on in the year, and then we're going on a 10-week tour. And I think it's a really powerful piece of theatre. It's sexy, it's political, and I think it's really relevant, and it will speak to a lot of people. We've got an amazing teachers pack for teachers that are very frightened of The Merchant of Venice, but we've really gone into this to sort of help people have an access point to understand it, and also understand a little bit about a hidden aspect of British history.
And of course, Tracy's given you so much information about the play, but you should be enticed to come and see it yourself. It'll be here until the 11th of March, so make sure you check out some tickets. I've heard that they are flying away.
They are. Antoine, lots of information. It does sound very, very good. I'm intrigued. Now, it's been bright and sunny out there today, hasn't it? But there are some nasty rumours, can you believe it, about snow next week. Here's Sally with the details.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles. Car, charger and energy.
Hello, a very good evening to you. Hope you had a good day. I am in love with this bird. Look at that, it's like a little tennis ball, isn't it? And it's going to need those feathers because it's going to get colder. We've got more cloud moving in tonight and through the next few days, feeling cooler under that cloud with less sunshine around. And it's going to get colder still as we go through the weekend into the start of next week. We can see some frosts return. And also as we go into next week, we are going to have these northerlies, this air coming down from the Arctic. As it comes over the sea, it picks up moisture. And we could next week see some showers, possibly some sleet and possibly some snow. But there is a lot of uncertainty, so the best thing to do is just keep an eye on the forecast. Now, as for this evening and overnight, more cloud moving in than we had today. That is going to act like a bit of a blanket, not the best blanket in the world, albeit, but our temperatures will go down to low single figures. But unless we get any clear spells, we should avoid a freezing start as we head on into Friday morning. Still feeling quite cool, though. We have got plenty of cloud around tomorrow as well, and that is going to just make things a tiny bit cooler. Our temperatures down by a degree or so, highs of 7 to 10 degrees tomorrow. It should stay dry, but just where that cloud is thick enough, you might get a little bit of light drizzle around. Into the evening, if you're heading out, not a huge amount of change. That cloud possibly breaking up a bit for a time before building back in as we go through the night. So that cloud generally staying with us into the outlook, looking a little bit on the gloomy side, isn't it? Generally quite a lot of dry weather, maybe a shower here or there. Our temperatures coming down though, as you can see, by day and by night, and into the start of next week. Do watch out, as I said, for something possibly a bit wintry. We'll let you know. That's it. See you later. Cheerio.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus Electric Vehicles.
And finally, it's taken her 10 years, but a woman from Isleworth has now tried a scone, or is it a scone, at every single National Trust location. Sarah Merker set herself the challenge in 2013 and has eaten 244, giving them all a ranking and a review along the way. She started the project with her husband, Peter, who sadly died of cancer in 2018, and said it felt like they were finishing the challenge together at the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland yesterday. And the information you're all waiting for, the best scone or scone of all, was a Christmas pudding variety with brandy butter at Treasurer's House in Yorkshire. It's making me very hungry, but that is all we've got time for. Charlene is here next with the ITV Evening News, but from me and the rest of the London team, bye-bye.